And you use this expression, a turn for the better or a turn for the worse, which means something is improving. That's a turn for the better. And a turn for the worse is when something is becoming worse. It's used a lot when talking about health. It's used in business for situations in business. It's also used for relationships. If things are getting better, they are taking, actually you use the word take with this, the verb take. They're taking a turn for the better or taking, and if things are going downhill, going bad, you say things are taking a turn for the worse. Let's practice how to use this in a situation. Here's the situation. The weather is very nice, so John and Mary went for a walk in the park. However, they decided very soon to go home. Let's make a why decide to go home question. Why? Why did they? Why did they? Why did they decide? Why did they decide to go? Why did they decide to go home? Why did they decide to go home? And here's the answer. The weather changed from good to bad. So it's changing. It was good when they left, but as they were walking, it started going bad. We can say the weather took a turn for the worse. The weather took a turn for the worse, and that means it's going from good to bad. Unexpectedly, the weather took a turn for the worse. Took a turn for the. Took a turn for the. The weather took a turn for the worse. Now, here's another sentence related to that situation. They should check the weather forecast. If you say they should check the weather forecast, using should, you're either talking about now or you're making some kind of recommendation for the future. But how can we change that into the past? How can you say they should check in the past? Do you know how to do that? They should have. They should have checked. They should have checked the weather. They should have checked the weather forecast. They should have. That's a very common thing to say. They should have whatever. Should have checked, should have gone, should have seen. And when people are talking, this is not a contraction that you can write, but when people are talking, it sounds like this. Should have. They should have checked. They should have checked the weather forecast. And in very conversational speech, it sounds like this. Shoulda. They should have checked. They should have checked the weather forecast. Now let's make a tag question with this sentence. This is going to be really hard. They should have checked. They should have checked the weather forecast. How would you make that little question at the end that means, here's my opinion, here's my observation. Do you agree with me? It's going to be a little bit hard. Let's start with the present. They should check. They should check. Let's try it in the present first. They should check the weather forecast. How would you make that little question? This is in the affirmative. They should check. So how would you make a do you agree with me question? They should check. Shouldn't they? The idea is in the affirmative. Let's make the question in the negative. They should check. Shouldn't they? Let's change it to past now. They should have checked. They should have checked. Shouldn't they have? They should have checked. Shouldn't they have? Shouldn't they have? That's how it sounds when people are talking. Shouldn't they have? They should have checked. Shouldn't they have? Let's be really lazy and say they should have checked. Shouldn't they have? They should have checked. Shouldn't they have? Okay. How would you agree with me? My opinion is they should have checked the weather forecast before leaving. You agree. You say, I agree. How will you do that if I say, shouldn't they have? They should have checked. Shouldn't they have? You repeat my original idea. You say, yes, they should have. Yes, they should. Yes, they should have. Yes, they should have. Yes, they should have. That's how you agree with me. You're right. They should have checked. Yes, they should have checked. They should have checked, shouldn't they have? Yes, they should have. You're right. You're right. They should have. All right, now what if you don't agree with me? For some reason, you think that's a bad idea. They should have checked the weather forecast before they left. Shouldn't they have? Tell me I'm wrong. No, that's wrong. If my original idea is affirmative, they should have checked, then you should say it in the negative to tell me I'm wrong. No. No, they shouldn't. No, they shouldn't have. No, they shouldn't have. No, they shouldn't have. No, they shouldn't have. Oh, that sounds, there's so many different ways that could be pronounced. It's so, no wonder why it's difficult to understand English when people are talking. You could say, no, they shouldn't have, which is very nice English. You could say, no, they shouldn't have, which is a little bit not as nice, but still okay. And you could be really bad and say, no, they shouldn't have, which is very common. That's probably how I do it when I'm talking to people. Or you can use, you don't need the T. The T is optional. No, they shouldn't have. No, they shouldn't have. So many ways you can say that. They should have checked the weather forecast because the weather took a turn for the worse. They should have checked. They should have checked the weather forecast because the weather took a turn for the worse. The weather went from good to bad. It changed from good to bad. It took a turn for the worse. Let's try using take a turn for the better, which means something improves unexpectedly. Here's a situation. Mary was in the hospital. Her friends and family were worried about her, but then they received good news. Her health suddenly, unexpectedly improved. Because her health is going from bad to good unexpectedly, we can say take a turn for the better. Her health took a turn for the better. Her health took a turn for the better. Let's make a how question. How her health take turn for better. How would you do that? How will you make a how question? How did her health take a turn? How did her health take a turn for the better? How did her health take a turn for the better? When we ask a how question, meaning to explain to me the process, explain to me how this happens, a lot of times you can use the preposition by plus an ing verb to answer that question. So if we say, how did her health take a turn for the better, and we want to explain the process, we can say by, that's a preposition by listening, ing verb, listening, by listening to her doctor. By listening to her doctor. How did her health take a turn for the better? By listening to her doctor, to her doctor, to her doctor, by listening to her doctor. Her health took a turn for the better by listening to her doctor. Now let's make a suggestion with should. She should eat better. She should eat better. That's our advice, our suggestion. But if we say she should eat better, we are talking about either now or we are making a recommendation for the future. But what if we want to say, in the past, she was wrong. In the past, she was bad. She didn't eat better. That was bad of her. How will you change should into the past? What do you do to make should into the past? She should have. She should have eaten. She should have eaten. She should have eaten better. She should have eaten better. That's why she was sick. She didn't eat very well in the past. She should have eaten better. But of course, when people are talking, they say should have eaten. Instead of should have, it sounds like should have. She should have eaten better. Or they can be very lazy and say shoulda. She should have eaten better. She should have eaten better. How will you make a "do you agree with my opinion" question? If the original sentence is "she should have eaten better," then the "do you agree with me" question should be negative. Shouldn't she? She should have eaten better. Shouldn't she have? She should have eaten better. Shouldn't she have? She should have eaten better. Shouldn't she have? Okay, now what if you agree with me? How will you say, "That's true, you're right"? Well, because if you want to agree with me, you repeat my original idea. She should have eaten better. You're right. She should have. That's true. She should have eaten better. She should have eaten better. Shouldn't she have? Yes, you're true. That's true. You're right. She should have. Yes, she should have. Yes, she should have. Yes, she should have. All right. What if you disagree with me? How will you disagree with me? She should have eaten better. Shouldn't she have? If you want to disagree with me, you have to say the opposite of my original idea. My original idea is she should have eaten better. So you have to say the negative. No, she shouldn't have. You're wrong about that. She shouldn't have. She should have eaten better. Shouldn't she have? No, she shouldn't have. No, she shouldn't have. No, she shouldn't have. No, she shouldn't have. Okay, let's see. All of Mary's friends were happy when they were at the hospital because she had taken a turn for the better. Her health had taken a turn for the better. Her health changed from bad to good. It took a turn for the better. All right.